All right, what crazy video do I have this time? Well, I'm gonna tell you. I made a cross-section pant form. And why do you want that? Let me tell you, if you're fitting pants and you're really struggling to understand that section right there at your crotch rise, having the cross section lets you see exactly what's going on. I made this admittedly to demonstrate how the crotch curve fits on a person for the pants fitting skill building session I'm doing in the guild. But I think that this could be useful to lots of people or other people who are teaching the same kind of thing. This way you can kind of see, here's this depth. What if this was a flat plane right here and you could think of it that way, making it a little easier to understand what's really happening when you're fitting the pant. I'll probably have some more pant fitting videos, but right now I'm working on helping others. But I thought I'd share this with you because it was faster and easier in making the whole pant form that I did back here, and it was a little cheaper. I used the Bootstrap Fashions custom pant form where you put in your measurements and then it spits out a pattern in a day or two. And I basically just used certain pieces that I'm going to show you, and I constructed a stand. And I would say this whole project is easily under $50 if you're kind of watching what you use. I spent about $40 on the pant stand pieces, and that's because I used a local hardware store who I really love to support, but it probably did cost me a little bit more than it needed to. And the pant form pattern was $26, but I used it for that, so I've already gotten to use it twice now. And then I used some Kona cotton on the outside, one zipper, about 2 pounds of polyfill, and interfacing. I interfaced the entire piece here. So this little sample that you see here was one that I just could not wait to try out my pant form, and so I ran and got it, and you're going to see it at the end because I just really wanted to see how it was doing. I did not fit this pant to this form, but it fits pretty darn good, and I cut it down the middle. So one of the things to think about is, because this is on a pole, I have to leave the inseam open to be able to get the pant on and off of her. And on the pant form over here, I have her hanging, and there's more about that at the very end of the video. All right, so this is the pant form without the fabric on there. This is the back right here. This is the cross section. There's that crotch curve. You can even see it in person. It's very obvious right here. And then that's the front. And then the leg. And she was supposed to, the pipe was supposed to come out the top, and so she was supposed to be kind of lifted up a little bit, but she's kind of resting on the bottom here, that I have this knuckle down here on the pipe, and so she's kind of sagging there, but I don't really care about that so much. I just really wanted something to be able to illustrate exactly what the body is doing through that area there. So join me while I make a pant form, but only half. All right, so I've block fused all of my fabric, which means that I fused one big piece of fabric with interfacing since I don't have very many pieces to cut. I don't usually block fuse, but in this case, it's gonna work out really great. And so I'm gonna just show you really quick which pieces you need to do this, and also kind of give you a chance to wrap your head around how these pieces fit together, because they're a little bit confusing, especially because of how the way they were printed. All right, so the pieces that I'm going to be using are number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then also 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm also going to be using number 12, which is the inner support, and probably half of the number 17, which isn't in fabric, it's in cardboard. And I'm going to be using a stiffener because I have a lot of this stuff. This is like a Pelon 70. It's a washable stiffener, ironable. It's very easy to use, very easy to sew, and I can use a few layers and get the kind of the thickness that I want. And let's see, what else am I going to use here? Oh, I'm going to show you how to draft a knee cap if you want to do this. We'll get to this point because we're just going to need a couple measurements. So, all right, so now let's look at how these are laid out. So right here, you're looking at 1/2 of the upper leg. And so this right here is the center back. So this seam right here is the one that goes down the center back. And then see, think of this as the rise of pants right here. And then this is the side back seam. This is the side seam. This is the side front. And then this is the center front. So here's the center front rise. So, or maybe this is, let's see here. Oh, yeah. Nope, it goes like this. And so that kind of helps you kind of start thinking about it, because one confusing thing about these pattern pieces is that the text is printed sideways and the arrow is pointing down. So if you're using a cute or fun print that's a one-way design, you're going to want to orient it with the arrow pointing down when the print is right side up. So right now, this is how the pieces are right side up to me. All of these pieces have lots and lots of notches, and they're there to aid you in figuring out how they go together. So there's a double notch, here's a triple notch, and see, sometimes they're obscured by the seam in the paper when you're taping it together. So just make sure when you're taping it together, if you notice any of those, you might want to uncover them. And so you have the upper and outer front leg. So this right here is the inner leg right here, the inseam, and then the outer leg. So right here is your knee. And then this right here is the back of the leg right here. So let's see, this is the inseam right here, single notch, number 8 to number 7. And then number 6 right here is the upper outer back leg. And then this one also sews to the upper front leg, and that's the side seam right there. All right, and so when these go together, they sew down here so that you have this going on right here. And so right now, the leg that this is going to make is the left leg. And that's fine, I don't really care which leg it is. As long as you cut out all of your pieces face up, you're going to get one leg. And if you cut 2, make sure you're doing them right sides together, and you transfer all your notches, and the sewing is almost the same. All right, let's get to it. So the other thing I didn't cut was the side pieces, which is that like kind of a slightly curved rectangular piece. I'm not going to do that piece, but you can do that piece. And really what that is kind of the torso high above your waist. So I would consider that to be like your rib cage in that area there. Now, if you want all that extra up at the top of your pant form for pinning things, or just to have it there so that you have your entire pant form available to you to work on, then you can add it. I didn't, and I'll show you my pant form. You've probably already seen pictures of it by now. I'm not going to, because I want this to be as compact as possible, and because the waist for me, where I like to wear my pants, is a good 2.5 inches from the top of that, and so I don't feel like I really need any more extra up there. And like I said, I'm going for something really compact for demonstrations and a little tabletop, so you might want that extra up there though. And so for the fabric that I'm using a Kona cotton. I don't really think this is the most ideal fabric for a dress form, because I'm not using a really classic dress form, this is just basically a demonstration model to see the cross section of a person right there at the torso. I decided that interfacing this and using the Kona cotton will be great, and it's also, the color is a good contrast against using muslin or a lighter color fabric against it. What I recommend using is something that's tightly woven, and if you want to use Kona cotton, do it, but pre-wash it a few times so it's nice and tight, and then interface it. I don't really like using fusible interfacings, but in this case, I think it's a great idea. But if you don't have any, just use another layer of fabric. You're definitely going to want the fabric to feel really sturdy. Now you can try using a canvas, but canvases can be a little thick sometimes, and they might add to the bulkiness of your pant form. You don't really want this to be bigger than you are if you're going for custom. You want it to be a little smaller because in my experience, because I have a custom dress form by Beatrice, I think that having it a little bit smaller makes it a little bit more realistic because you're breathing and moving around. And in general, when you're trying to get a garment onto a dress form or a pant form, she or he isn't really cooperating with you, and you're really trying to struggle to get it on there. And the ease is a little harder to detect because they're taking up more space inside the garment, even if they measure a little bit less. It's just kind of a weird thing, and you get kind of used to it, and you kind of start knowing, oh, when it fits like this on my form, I know how that's going to fit on me. And it usually fits me better, even though I'm a little bigger than my dress form. It fits me better because I'm soft and I'm breathing and cooperating when I getting it on and off. Okay, so I have almost all of my pieces cut out, and I've been drawing the darts on, or the notches on there. I don't really feel like you have to do that. I'm doing that just to save myself time because I'm filming a video, and I did make this already once before, and having that visual cue is going to just help me be a little faster. I also wrote the number on each piece. I highly recommend you do that on the back side. I did on the front because my interfacing is too dark to see the marker. So I highly recommend you do that in pencil, maybe on the seam allowance if you're using a lighter color fabric, or pin something to it. Trust me, they start to kind of morph one into the other once you start sewing them together. And once you have like a upper leg or a lower leg, you don't want to inadvertently sew two right legs if your interfacing is 2 layers of muslin and you can't see the right and wrong side of the fabric. So I highly recommend that. And then you'll notice that I cut out 2 pieces of interfacing, or stiffener actually, for this little kneecap thing right here. And my pole is going to go through this hole as well because I'm going to mount it on a stand. And I cut it smaller than the piece. I'm not sewing it into the seam allowance there. It's just going to be up to the edge there. I may even stitch it on there just to kind of stabilize it. So, all right, so let's figure out the size of this pattern piece that you need. All right, so you're going to get all of your leg pieces. And if you chose the view with the seam allowance already printed on there, it's visible on the pattern pieces. You can see my seam allowance is visible on there. Double check this because I've seen this a few times where people think that they toggled that on and it didn't get included in their pattern pieces. So make sure that you didn't need to add seam allowance to your pieces. And now I want you to measure along this bottom edge of 5, 6, 7, and 8. Just measure on the seam line only. So you're going to measure on every single one of these pieces, this little area right there in red. So don't go up to the cut edge, just go on the seam line there. All right, you're going to take that circumference, because that is the circumference around your knee, and you're going to divide it by 3.14. So take whatever number that is, and you've got divide it by 3.14. All right, so promise this math is really easy. All right, and then take that number and cut it in half. We learned the diameter, which goes all the way across the circle. All right, now I want you to cut that in half, right? And now you have your radius, which is your circle to the outer edge. All right, and then get a piece of scrap paper that's going to be big enough for your knee. Your knee is probably not going to be much bigger than your hand, your whole pattern piece. So get a pattern piece that'll fit that. And then get another little scrap of paper. Like, it can be pretty much anything. I recommend something kind of thick though, like if you have a piece of cardboard sitting, or not cardboard, but just like cardstock or something. But a little piece of paper will work too. And now draw a straight line on this little piece of paper. put an end at one, and then put that half amount, the radius from here to here, from the middle to the outer ring, put that measurement there, all right? Okay, so now this right here should equal this to here. All right, and then now we're going to poke a little hole. When you poke a little hole in this, poke it on the inside, so between the edges. So you have a little hole right here, and you're gonna poke a little hole right here. All right, now congratulations, you've made a compass. And then roughly find the middle. If you're using a little scrap of paper, you know, try and find like about where, so you don't go off the edge there. And now I'm gonna make one of these holes a little bigger so I can fit a pen, like a writing utensil through there. And the other one, I'm gonna use something pokey. I've used a push pin, a straight pin, whatever you got. Put it in the middle there. And now you're gonna draw a circle. Just like this. And I have one more tip for you when you're doing this. There you go. All right, so if you want to make this next step easier, before you draw your circle, add your seam allowance to the end of this right here. So if you have a 3/8 inch seam allowance, add it to the end here and use that as your outer cut edge right there. And then that way you don't have to draw a parallel line. So just draw it with your 3/8 of an inch seam allowance in there. And now you have your kneecap. All right, so once you have your kneecap, you're gonna cut a piece of fabric for it and interfacing. And then if you want to reinforce it with some stiffener or cardboard, you might want a piece that's on the inside as well. Okay, so to draft the piece that's going to close off the cross section, if you're making only this half version like me, you're going to need to fill in this little oval right here. And so one thing to note too is if you're sewing the full pant version, this line right here, because I didn't figure this out when I sewed mine and it made it a real struggle. This line right here sews to your number 3 and your number 1 like this, but you don't line it up to the edge here. You match the notches. And so this notch right here, that is the top of this piece, just so you know if I forget to tell you. Otherwise, if you sew it all the way to the top here, it makes it really hard to put on the next piece. Okay, so this is what we have. So I've taped together my back and my front. So this is the part that goes between the legs right here. So this is kind of look at it like this here. And so this is the crotch rise right here. And then this gets matched to this piece right here. And so this is like as if you sliced me down the middle and you were looking at me from the side. This is my cross section. So what we're missing here to sew this is that little oval right there. So we're going to fill that in real quick. And this isn't a perfect science without spending a ton of time and experimentation on it, but I think that we can get pretty close. So let's tape this together. Add a little piece of paper here. And then I'm going to use my notches and make sure that you're lining up on the seam line as well. So this notch right here, this T notch right here, and this T notch right here go to these points on the pattern right here. So right here and here. These are my fabric markers. So. All right, so we're going to just look at this kind of like this. We're just kind of getting an idea of what kind of shape that we might want. Like that. And if you want, you could, you know, clip your curve. Bend it a little bit. This is cheating pattern drafting 101. All right, so we're going to lay that there, and I'm going to line it up on the seam line there. All right, so I have the seam line lined up there, and we'll just cheat with this one too. We just want a little bit of the seat. Not that I think that this is a perfect replica of me, but it is going to be a nice semblance of the shape of a person. All right, so let's line this one up here. And then we have our notch up there like that. All right, and so now I can kind of look at this. I'm gonna pull it kind of tight. And I can use my tracing wheel, or you can use a pin, like a sewing pin, and put some holes in this paper here where this curve is. And if you use pins, I did this for a long time, just use a pin, and you can kind of poke holes in the paper there, just like this. And then you can see your curve here. Here's my curve, like that. And now I just need seam allowance on that edge. Now, it may not be perfect, but I think this is a really great start. All right, so let's cut out our piece. And so look, there we are. That's my front and that's my back. Now it's looking more like a cross section, right? All right, and then let's add our seam allowance real quick. For me, it's 3/8, kind of evening up that. All right, now I have my pattern piece for my side. Oh, and I actually do need to add to the top because we don't want to stop at the top here. So we need to add about 5/8 or 3/4 of an inch. So let's just push this down a little bit here. So I'm going to add 3/4 of an inch to this edge. All right. Let's do our notches. So the last piece of the puzzle for modifying this to be a half of a pant form is the top. And so I think earlier I might have told you that this piece actually did finish off the top right here, but it doesn't. I was wrong. This is the cardboard piece that goes under the very top of the pant form if you make it the way it's prescribed. And so it goes under the zippered pieces, and here's the part for the pole to go through. So I don't need to do that at the very top. So I was going to use this piece to finish mine at the top. But it's not quite the right size. And so let's just walk through what we have so far here. So here is my pant form, right? And so we're looking at, this is the front edge right here, and this is the back edge. So this is my cross section, right? And here's my inseam right there, right? And then this right here is the piece that we just made to fit there. And so now all we need is this piece right here, this little half moon right here. And so what we need is, I folded this in half, and it's going to sew to this edge right here. And then this edge right here needs to measure the length of your half top of your pant form. And so let's check that out. All right, so we know we need this to be longer, this piece right here to be longer. So I've cut a circle, half circle a little bit bigger than what I need. And so I've got my amount right there. And so now I need this measurement to match this length here. So let's measure this. You can measure your pattern pieces too if you haven't cut them out. Measure on the seam line. And then I get 17 inches, and we're going to still do it on the seam line on the inner edge here. And so how much? We have 1 inch extra. And so I would really like to not lose this height right here. So let's put our ruler there and put our ruler over here at 17 and kind of see what is it looking like that I need to trim off. And remember, I need seam allowance. So let's just take off a little bit in these little areas here, kind of like this. All right, we're spot on right now. It definitely doesn't look like a perfect little half circle, and I'm totally fine with that because I am not a perfect half circle either. So we just need this to fit right here, and this right here, and then we're all done. All right, so I'm totally guessing where that hole is going to go because I think where you put the pipe down the center can really affect the posture of the pant form. But my backup plan is to not poke it all the way through and then just kind of move it around where I want and then maybe stabilize it a different way later on. All right, so let's talk about where your pant form is going to live because this is kind of the hardest part about making this. Sewing it up, stuffing it. I know the stuffing, you hear about the stuffing is kind of a task, but it's actually not that bad. People really scared me on it and it ended up being not that bad. So the tricky part is how are you going to use your pant form once you've made it because it can't stand up on its own and you can't really like put a pole up the middle of it unless you plan on draping pants on there because you can't get the pant onto the leg. So you'd have to always leave an inseam open and then pin it on there. And I'm fine with that since I'm doing a little tabletop version. So if you want to do a hanging one, I have a list here of the parts you need and you can see the one I used. So my little tips about this are make sure you put some sort of weight at the bottom of your pant form so that she's not really light and moving around. And it also kind of stabilizes the whole stand. If you can weight the bottom of the stand, I think that's great too. So I think, oh, the wheels I used didn't end up working out. They kept slipping out even though they said they would work. So I don't really recommend that. My pipe has this sleeve on it because it's kind of oily and that's why I put that on there. And then I just used a couple of pattern hooks and then I found a swivel hook to kind of connect them to. So that's why mine can move around a lot, but she is a little bit cumbersome and I feel like even though I like the height of this and this is why I made my own because I didn't want it to have to bend over to use it, she can be a little tippy. So I say if you can make the bottom really heavy, that's really great. So getting back to what I'm doing here though, so I have this really dirty piece of wood here, and then I got a few pieces here. So this is how it's gonna go. So I'm gonna stand it up for you. You can look in the face cam. So this right here, this piece, this is gonna mount to the wood in the middle. And then the pipe here, I put in two sections. And I did this because what my plan is to put this one on here. And I wanted a chunk right here to stop the pant form from sliding past this point. So this pipe is going to go up the middle of the pant form like that. And then it's going to rest on here. So essentially this kneecap right here is going to be like right there. That's my hope. And then this cap is just to make the top look nice and not cut my fingers on the threading because they cut this pipe for me. So but all of this cost me about $40 and I bought it at a local, very small town hardware store. So I think you can get this for a lot less than that. And I used 3/4 inch pipe and you can just go to the plumbing section of your store. This right here is a connector and all these pieces move in here. There's different varieties of this. So you need this piece. If you want to do it the way I'm doing it, this is I think a 6-inch piece right there. This right here is going to mount to the board and make it stable, and I picked this size board because I'm hoping it won't tip. I have the pipe, which is only 2 feet, and this is barely long enough to fit on my pant form, and I may have to cut a little bit off the bottom of the knee. So I recommend 3 feet if you're tall. I'm 5'4", and or you're adding that extra part on the top of the pant form. So make sure you get enough. And what you can do is just measure yourself to the bottom of your knee, and then add that bit, those curved rectangular pieces, and you'll get an idea. The cap is the last little piece. So it's just these 5 pieces right here and the piece of wood that is filthy. And I'm hoping that this is going to be my whole pant form stand. All right, moment of truth. I get to stuff this finally. So I constructed my stand, which I did pretty quickly. I took that piece of wood and I used some double stick carpet tape. And this piece of fabric here is a napkin that I bought from World Market because they go on half price sale. I'm always using them for weird little projects like pocket linings and things like that. And then I pre-drilled 4 holes into the board right through the carpet tape and the fabric. And this is what the underside looks like. So it's just raw wood. And then I just screwed the flange in there and it put this bottom section on, this knuckle here, and then the pipe. And so this right here, remember, is to serve as a stop so that my pant form doesn't go past this point. And that's, I'm hoping this works. Like, this is kind of an experiment. My backup plan is if this section of pipe is too short to fit through my entire pant leg with pipe coming out the top, I'm going to either let the pipe just sit inside there, maybe even make like a support so that it stays in the spot that I want it, or I'm going to put the pant form so that it rests down here and let this knuckle be inside the pant form. All right, so let's get stuffing. I've got this huge 5-pound box of polyfill. When you buy the pant form, it recommends 5 to 10 pounds depending on what size category you're on. 5 pounds ended up being perfect and the perfect amount to stuff my entire pant form, but I also didn't do the lower leg past 1 knee. So it was 3/4 of a pant form in legs. And so I would have probably needed 2 boxes to do the entire thing. So I probably won't use very much of this, but it's going to be pretty, you know, used enough of it. All right, so I'm just gonna get a little stuffing in here and keep my little cardboard pieces in place. And I think I'm gonna have to kind of stuff this while it's on the form or on the stand. I think it'll be a little bit awkward, but I don't have to do it for very long. Just gonna pull that down just like this. Just like this, and so here you go. Kind of see what I'm doing. This is the crotch curve on this side right here, so that's the part that I want to stay flat. So this is my inseam. So I'm gonna let that board hang off like this for a little bit while I get a little bit of stuffing in here. So I don't have very much experience stuffing dress forms. This is only my second one ever. But what I did learn with doing that one is you want to pack it really tight and kind of shape it as you go. And if you're making a custom one, you want to measure it along the way. And so what I recommend is taking a bunch of measurements before you even start stuffing so that you can feel like you can just keep going. And you don't have to stop, measure you, and then measure this. So I had like a little list just sitting here while I did it, and then I could just kind of measure as I went when I did my pant form. Let's rotate this around a little bit. And it's gonna get that very stuffed. I know this is kind of mashing it down a little bit. I'm just holding the pipe in there as I go. All right, so let's get this in here at that spot. Okay, very nice. Very flat. See, we're starting to see that. Okay, I'm gonna set this on the ground and finish stuffing it. All right, so I'm so excited that I just ran and got one of my many prototypes I've been fitting on me and my other pant form. This is the one that fits me, but it works pretty good on this pant form. This pant form is a tad bigger than me, but I'm pretty excited to see this pant on here. You can really tell what's happening there. And look at this, see this right here, this section, if you just pictured this right here as flat flat paper. That's why you change this depth here, and occasionally why you have to scoop the curve or fill it in, because we're not all shaped the same way, right? So this was fit for my crotch curve, but you can see, and look at this, like watch, just picking this up a little bit to kind of get that better. I don't have a horizontal balance line drawn on this side of the short. I had to pick the left leg for this, but well, hopefully you can see what a big impact this is going to be. And I really do think you could get something like this custom for you. It would take up a lot less space in your sewing room, and then maybe it would help you visualize things, or maybe you're a teacher and you're teaching pants fitting and you just need that kind of that visual for the crotch curve there. So, and I'm really glad I didn't put that top section up because my pant form has that big section, and I obviously like my pants much lower than the pant. Like that looks really low rise, but it's not. That's like right below my belly button. The top of the waistband touches my belly button. So that's perfect. Not bad. I am so glad I had thought of trying this out, and I hope it was helpful to you.